The abilities from Assassin's Creed Odyssey are back in Valhalla, but this time it works quite different. And there's now actually a difference between skills and abilities, and also how you can earn them. In this video I want to go in depth on all the abilities I saw and used during my 6-hour Ubisoft Forward play session, also some that were teased in some promotional videos they released, and also how you can unlock abilities and way more. A like on the video would be super appreciated, and let's go. I decided to extend that Ultimate Edition giveaway for Far Cry 6, Watch Dogs Legion or Valhalla because I still have way more Ubisoft Forward content coming and was really focused on Ghost of Tsushima. So if you want to participate, then totally click the link in the pinned comment for a chance to win. And be sure you are a subscriber of the channel as well before you enter, and I will reach out to the winner via the email. So as I said in a previous video, I really had to get used to the Valhalla controls after having spent hundreds of hours in Origins and Odyssey. And one of the main reasons is the fact that the ability window is now not on L1, as it was with Odyssey, but on the right trigger instead. So just by pressing the trigger once, you do a heavy attack, but by holding it, you can select an ability with one of the face buttons. But yeah, in the heat of battle, I totally forgot to hold R2 and instead went for the L1. I got used to it over time, but it's still a very noticeable change for everyone who spent a ton of time in Odyssey like me. Another big change, as already hinted at in the intro, is that skills and abilities are now two different things. We also see that in the menu thanks to two different tabs, while that was not the case before. In this video, I will mostly focus on the abilities. They are active and usable if you assign them to one of your 4 slots of your ability wheel. Not sure if there will be a second wheel that you can switch between like we saw in Odyssey. In that game you could have 8 melee abilities at the same time. It wasn't possible in the demo, and also this message showed up the first time you opened the ability menu, saying that up to 8 abilities can be assigned at once. So that's likely combining the ranged and melee abilities. So hard to say if there will be a second wheel. Right now that doesn't seem to be the case. There were 5 melee abilities I could use in the demo, so at one point I had to switch one out. And what is interesting is that I learned this ability by completing a raid. So by doing certain activities and exploring the world, you can actually find completely new abilities that you did not know about before. Dive of the Valkyries is very powerful, dealing a ton of damage onto enemies after jumping on them and pushing them away. So missing out on this one would be huge. I also found 2 other so-called books of knowledge by exploring the world, going to the yellow glows that you see with your bird soon in that indicate wealth. So these could be settlement resources, gear and weapons, and also those abilities. The tutorial notes that these abilities are often heavily guarded in monasteries or military camps. And if you find an ability that you already have, then you upgrade the ability to rank 2. Like here I got the Raven Distraction rank 2 after exploring this abandoned building. So with this ability you call Sunin to help you out and stun an enemy, something that the birds from the previous games would just randomly do, but now you have more control over it by targeting a specific enemy and commanding your bird. So as you can read, on rank 1 it would just normally distract your enemies briefly. So still pretty nice, but now on rank 2, Sunin attacks the target to begin the distraction and actually stuns them as well. So nice to get away from enemies, but also to then run up to them and finish them off with a powerful stun attack. The third and last book of knowledge in the demo was hidden in a tower that I could actually also climb and use as a sync point that, as you expect, then functions as a fast travel location. But for the book I had to go down and actually find a way to break the wood so I could fall down even further, and it looked a little bit funky, but remember, it's a work in progress. Then I had to shoot one of the familiar oil jars to break the blockade, and then I could grab the book. So this was an upgrade for the Axe Fury. an ability that you've likely already seen a couple of times, where you throw multiple axes to surrounding enemies, but if there's only one enemy in front of you, then you will just throw like one axe towards that enemy. And this does quite a lot of damage, but with this upgrade, enemies struck will also be staggered, meaning that they will be stunned for a short time and you can finish them off with a stomp. And stomp is, by the way, a skill that you have to unlock. So the difference is that you have to activate the abilities manually and that you have to find them in the world, while the skills are unlocked with skill points, and after you unlock them, they will trigger at a certain point. So in this case, after staggering an enemy. Other abilities that I could use during my play session, but that I did not find any upgrades for, were Ranged Poison Strike. That applies poison to the tip of your arrows. I'm not sure if there's like an ability like this for fire arrows as well. I did get some fire arrows at 2 points in my play session, but that was more organic because I hit the oil jar and that created some fire on the ground, and if you then stand close you get some fire arrows. And there's a similar poison ability for your melee weapons in Valhalla too. So what they basically did is grabbed the venomous attack from Odyssey and made it into 2 separate abilities, because in Odyssey you could activate it and then you had poison on both your melee weapons and your bow. In Valhalla you have to focus on one, and I mostly did the melee one to give enemies that damage over time, and that's especially great against the many bosses that I encountered that have a ton of health. So this whole damage over time system works a little different compared to Odyssey. Namely, when you hit an enemy with a poison attack in Valhalla, the effect, the damage over time, already applies. While in Odyssey this happened when the skull icon was full. So now in Valhalla you also have to build up that skull icon, but again, even when it is not full yet, there will still be a small amount of damage over time. If the skull icon is full though, after hitting the enemy repeatedly with your poison weapon, then it deals like a ton of damage over time, and then the effect wears off after a brief moment. So then you have to build it up again, and fire seems to work the same, only enemies like catch that a little faster than poison, so just 1 fire arrow or 2 will already have them burned. So you totally want to focus on reaching that full skull icon, but even if you don't, you will still do some nice damage over time, like you see right here. It was enough to kill this enemy, although out of nowhere he killed me too with a super powerful attack while I had more than half health. So that was quite a surprise. Also worth noting is that the Poison Strike cost 1 ability bar, while in Odyssey it did not cost anything, so you could just use it whenever it was available. We also got the Mark of Death, basically the multi-shot ability from Odyssey, so you can target multiple enemies. And then the final ranged ability I could use is the Thorn of Slumber. I already showed you this before, putting the enemies to sleep in mid-combat, so basically stunning them for a while. But yeah, you can then also run up to them and assassinate them. Especially really powerful against high health enemies, because then you can run up to them and do the quick time event. If you then are successful, you instantly kill them, while normally they can take a lot of hits. The Rush and Bash ability was a strange one. So activating this one changes the camera position, and then you're running and can grab an enemy along the way. If you then push them against something in the environment, they might instantly die or be stunned. In the deep dive trailer, we also saw Ubisoft use that ability to break multiple doors. So it's a fun new ability, but it was kinda hard to control, so hopefully they still tweak that. But again, I'm happy that we also got some new abilities, because really after making this ability video, I realized how many of them are pretty familiar if you played Odyssey. Especially the Kick of Tear, like that is basically the Spartan kick, but in this Viking game. Enemies who strike objects or other enemies will suffer additional damage, or they will just lay on the ground, after which you can do a stomp. An ability that looked really cool but that I sadly could not use was the Viking Harpoon, that seemed to just one-hit KO enemies in an awesome and brutal way. And in that trailer we also saw icons for other abilities, like a more assassin type ability with a character with a hood, so curious what that is. We see another axe. Seems like a thunder strike or something else, I don't know, but it looks pretty cool. For ranged abilities, we got this lion hat, so I'm curious what that is. Maybe that you can like summon an animal or something. And we see this piercing arrow that we don't know anything about yet. Of course, your theories for these unknown abilities are more than welcome in the comments down below. And we also got this Whirlwind Arrow. So I can't wait to find out what they are, how many active abilities there will be in total. And again, on top top of that, we also got a lot of skills. Like, trust me, there are a ton of skills. I was really surprised by this skill menu and actually seeing new ones pop up the more skill points I spent. So yes, I will totally go in depth on all the skills I also saw in my play session in a future video. So subscribe for everything on Assassin's Creed Valhalla if you haven't already. Like, way more content is coming your way. A like on the video would be super appreciated. And totally check out my previous video on the open world, the world map, and some of the activities that we can expect to do. For now though, I will speak to you next time, and goodbye.